Hello, my name is Brandon Jones, and I'm going to be presenting my super game for week 1 of Emerging Technologies in Mobile Games. Alright, so to start it off, I'm going to run the game, and here it comes. Alright, so I have my simple game. It has a menu with just the title of the game, which is Super Game because it's the best game. And it has a simple play button in the center of the screen. It works. You can see I'm clicking all over the screen, not on the button. Click on the title, click on the button, the game starts up into the actual game. Okay, so it's a very simple game. It's essentially a rock, paper, scissors game. So the player's over here on the left, and the enemy is over here on the right. You can see their health on the bottom, and your choices are up at the top. There are also buttons. So you get to make your choice. You get to make rock, paper, scissors. You click rock. It's a loss. The enemy picks paper, and the player takes damage. We take scissors. This time we won. Whenever you get the correct choice, your player attacks the enemy, and the enemy does an animation for a taking damage, and vice versa if you get the wrong thing. So we have a loss right here. Enemy or player loses health. Player gets a victory. Draw. So when draw happens, nothing happens. Meanwhile, they're all doing an idle stance. So draw again. Attack. That's a win. Attack again. Okay. And draw again. Draw. Loss. Loss again. And win. Okay, so you win. It says retry. The enemy did a death animation, but he popped right back up into his idle. So you get the option to retry and go back into the main menu. So that's our win condition. Let's see if we can get our loss condition. Maybe. Oh wow, looks like we actually may be able to lose pretty quickly. I'm apparently awful when I want to be awful. Okay, loss again. Loss again. Oh my gosh, I'm making a comeback here. Loss. Okay, so you lose, same thing happens. This time you died. Retry button happens, animation. So retry goes back to the main menu again. Okay. So now that that's done, we can explain the code. So as far as the code goes, we have the main menu scene right over here, header and M file, whatever that means. So we have the initialization, and that's a simple, I use a chalk duster text because that's what the Xcode tutorials were all about, the Sprite Kids tutorials. So I made my name, super game, bumped up the font size. I set my label for the title at 75% of the screen and height, so 3/4. So I did the middle and then the max, and then I set it up there. Okay, so down here for the button, I created a new button. I created a method to do that. It's just creating a new label node, setting the text of what it will say, the font size, and its position, as well as its actual name of the node. And that is output by this function, this method, and added to the scene. Within our touch event function, we're picking up, or first we're getting the play button by finding it with its name. We're checking to make sure it's not null or nil. Then we go into our for loop, check for all the touches. We get the current touch location, and we're checking to make sure that the play button is within our touch location. So upon doing this, if the play button was within the touch location, then we have these SK actions, which are to zoom, so to scale up, so to get larger when we click on the button right here, when it gets larger. And then it's going to fade and then change finally to the next scene. So we have a sequence for zooming and fading away, and we're running that. So on completion of it doing these two things, it's going to run our next scene, which is the main scene, which is a new my scene, which is over here. And then it's going to present that scene. Okay, so that was the whole menu and button to get into the main game loop features. So we have our next scene, which it goes into. We have quite a bit of animations and buttons up here in the implementation section. I'm not sure exactly what it's called in Objective-C. So we have our labels here for the things like the player choice, like if he's going to do rock, paper, scissors, what his health is, what the outcome of the two things are, whether or not he lost or won the pick from rock, paper, scissors. And then we have the game over message, whether or not the player lost. We have the rock, paper, scissors buttons and the retry button. We have all of the actions for the players and enemies, as if so attacking, getting damaged, or dying. And then we have all of the animations. Okay, so we come into here and I'm initializing all the things game over, so the game hasn't ended. We're not processing any actions. We have a basic animation speed and we have player and enemy health defaulted. I have it at 5 rather than what you see on screen, which is the 100. I just multiply it by 20. So we have here, we're setting the enemy and player positions. So enemy and players, we're just setting them here. We have an add enemy function so that will go and actually load up all of the animation files from the texture files. Over here we have an assets, we have attack and death and a get hit and things, all of these files. So this goes through all of them as explained in the tutorial that we watched. So the boss attack, the boss death, the boss get hit, the boss idle, and we load all those up, and then I also initialize the actions. So we have the enemy idle action, which happens forever. We have the attack action, which runs or plays our animation, the attack. We have the damage, plays the damage, and we have death, plays the death. And then we add this. We add the enemy. The add player function is very similar to the enemy file. It's essentially the same stuff, except it loads up the different animations other than the enemy stuff. So we go on, and after we have the enemies and players loaded, we have a whole bunch of stuff for the buttons, for the rock, paper, scissors buttons, the player choice button, enemy choice button, outcome button, or label at that point. So that is a new button, which is a label node that just takes in a parameter for text, a name, and a position. I have the font size just being 12 for everything, so as not too complicated because they're all can be the same basic size. So we go on and we have the player health node, which is just player health with the current health times 20 added to this. So it's just basic. Once again, it's the same button format of all these things. So going onwards down the road after that enemy. Okay, so down here we actually have our touch touches began function that does all of our input. So we're once again getting the touch location of the things to test against buttons to see if we're touching in the right spot. So we have, first off, we're checking to see if the game ended. If so, this is when this button comes up as the retry button to go back to the main menu. So if the game is over and the retry button comes up and you touched on the retry button. Then we once again do the zoom and fade away to action on the button when you click it, and then on that completion it goes back to the main menu scene, which is the main menu scene up here, which is where we started. So we go down here and we have the different buttons for the player choice of rock, paper, scissors. I could have done these in an enum to make it a little more readable, to 0 rock, 1 scissors or paper, and 2 scissors. But it was kind of simple, so I didn't really feel that it had to be done. So we're going onwards. If the player choice is less than 0, it starts off as -1. So if they didn't click a button, then just return break out of here. Otherwise, we have the make choice function, which is right up here. It's just a simple what node, what choice. If the choice is rock, we'll display the rock for the player, but this also is for the enemy. So we have the rock, paper, whatever their choice was, show up to the left and the right. So we'll see right here when you click rock, rock is right here and paper's right here, what they chose. Okay, so we go down here if we have a winner. So if this function right here shows who won the current exchange of rock, paper, scissors, this function is called right here. If the player is equal to the enemy choice and it's a 0, if the player wins it's a 1, and if the enemy wins it's a -1. So we have if the player wins, then we do the damage enemy function, which is right up here. We will first say that we are processing an action, which is a flag I use right here to buffer input so that you don't click on rock, paper, scissors over and over again without the animations playing and things like that. Just give it time to process. So if the enemy health is greater than 1, then they wouldn't die from this choice. So they still have health left. So we do the player attack action, which is played, and upon completion we're going to subtract their health by 1, and we're going to play the enemy damaged action right here. We're also going to update their health. Lastly, we are going to, on the completion of the damage, we're going to reset all of the actions. In the event that the enemy would die upon completion of that action, we will subtract from their health, go through and update their health on screen. We'll display a you win, and we will reset all of our things to make them hidden and things like that, and we'll say that game over is true. Same thing happens for if the enemy wins and it actually damages a player, except when the player dies, it's a you died message rather than the you win message down here, as well as all the enemies are doing the animations rather than the player. Okay, so when you win, once again we have this button that comes up and sends you back to the main menu. So that's it for the game. It's a very simple game. I got the animations from the Adventure Game Sprite Kit demo. Okay, as far as the Sprite Kit itself, the technology, I thought it was really cool. They have a lot of awesome stuff that as watching the tutorial video, I was really impressed and really excited to start working with it. As far as actually getting into the documentation and trying to find certain things, it was a little bit more difficult to actually find things. Like actually rotating a sprite took me 5 or 10 minutes to find actually how to just rotate it, and to learn that it was in radians and not degrees. So it was a little bit difficult to find certain things. If you went through their whole tutorial process, it was probably, if you wanted to learn it the way they wanted to teach it, it was probably a little easier. But um, yeah. So the as far as the workload itself, I didn't feel like it was too hard or too easy. I felt like it was definitely challenging to learn sprite code and learn Objective C on top of all this. I didn't think it was overwhelming because the actual requirements to finish this weren't too difficult. You just had to have a menu. You didn't even have to have a real game, really, other than touch events. So, I mean, I wouldn't say that it's too hard to hit the minimum requirements, but I'd say that if you actually wanted to make an interesting game, it would probably be a little bit too hard for the week. I thought that it was a pretty awesome way to do it. It was very open ended. I kind of like that format. Finding assets was a little difficult before I actually went and just got their example adventure game assets. Um, I feel like this is definitely going to be useful. I hope that later on in the program we touch more up on SpriteKit or other Xcode things and get to work with it more and learn more of the inner working things. I feel like this is definitely a good baseline, though, learning all of the sprite code things. Um, Honestly, I have had a lot of fun with this assignment. I had a lot of fun learning Objective-C. I'd never touched it before, and SpriteKit learning. It's a very powerful tool. Yeah. So that's my screencast for this week. Thank you very much.